Psalm 122. I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord. Our feet shall stand within thy gates, O Jerusalem. Jerusalem is builded as a city that is compact together, whither the tribes go up, the tribes of the Lord, unto the testimony of Israel, to give thanks unto the name of the Lord. For there are set thrones of judgment, the thrones of the house of David. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. They shall prosper that love thee. Peace be within thy walls, and prosperity within thy palaces. For my brethren and companions' sakes, I will now say, peace be within thee. Because of the house of the Lord our God, I will seek thy good. And God appeared unto Jacob again when he came out of Padan Aram, and blessed him. And God said unto him, thy name is Jacob. Thy name shall not be called any more Jacob, but Israel shall be thy name. Then he called his name Israel. And God said unto him, I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply. A nation and a company of nations shall be of thee, and kings shall come out of thy loins.
The word kingdom means what? Domicile of the kings. Domicile of the kings. That's what kingdom means. Okay? So that means domicile, that's the place. A place where kings dwell. Only men could be kings. Kingdom, domicile of the kings. That proves that only men could be in this truth. Women are not kings. Only men are kings. So that proves a point, which I goes into Ezekiel, unto you, O men are called, Ezekiel 34, right? Only men are going to receive the truth, because the Lord is only dealing with men. The tabernacle of the Most High is with men, right? So that proves that this word is the kingdom, is the kingdom itself. The knowledge, because only men are going to really receive this thing. The kingdom of the Most High is within you. So you brothers, the ones of y'all, you sincere brothers, y'all heard what the scripture said, the kingdom of the Most High is within you. So we already got the kingdom. So the kingdom, it was given to us back in Matthew 10 and 5, when Yahushua came. The knowledge, this truth. That's why this knowledge is nothing to play with. Here it is, the Lord then blessed you with the kingdom already. It's within you.
The Lord is going to put us back in our land, man, through Yahushua. We're going to be sovereign. We're going to rule. We're going to win. We're going to have everything in abundance, man. Our heart's desire, and our enemies will be our footstools.
Flock Freight's patented technology finds and fills the empty spaces on trucks to combine your freight with others going
the Assyrians were
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Kakadash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great example to us younger brothers. And peace and blessings, salutation to the hopeful lake out there pushing his word in truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful lake believers and listeners whom have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah. All right, what I want to get into this morning, dealing with another installment of he putteth down one and set above another, okay? Because it all goes back to, all right, Yahweh Bashim Al-Shai and his will being played out in the earth, and when you go into prophecy, pretty much it's the Lord's will, okay, that's being played out in the earth, there's just the Lord, all right, giving you detail of what he wants to do in the earth or what he's going to do in the earth. In fact, let's get that in Isaiah 46, 9 and 10. And let's get that in Psalm 75, verses 4 and 5. Okay. And then we'll get into, all right, dealing with, okay, the Assyrian Empire, which was prophesied to come into power. And if a brother could also post Daniel 7, okay, and 3. Lord will, we just go through, all these beasts in Daniel, the 7th chapter, in installments. We already started with the 4th beast, which was the Romans, but we're going to pull back and go to the Assyrian Babylonian Empire, then to the Medes and Persians, and then to the Greeks. Lord will, we'll, do it in installments. Lord will is edifying and informative. Now, let's get Daniel chapter 7, verses 1 through 4. Yeah, let's go verses 1 through 4. All right. Yeah, and get Daniel chapter 7, verses 1 through 4. We just read into it. All right. Now, this is the brother Bayan Yashala, Isaiah 46 and 9. It says, remember, the former things are old, for on the Most High, and there is none else. On the Most High, and there is none like me. Okay. And the Lord distinguishes himself through what? Through prophecy. Okay. Which he causes, he calls our forefathers to have visions and had them scribed down. And then he will have those visions played out in the earth. Okay. And that's the way that the Lord will distinguish himself, all right, from these false deities, is by pronouncing prophecy and making it come to pass. Okay, as you're going to read in verse 10, it says, declaring the end from the beginning and from the ancient times of things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand and I will do all my pleasure. Okay, so when we look at prophecy, that's the Lord's pleasure playing out in the earth. All right, from Yahushua being crucified, okay, to the Greek Empire, taking down the Persians, okay, to us going into captivity on ships, okay, the curses on us, everything that we see happening is the Lord's will, okay, playing out in the earth. There's nothing that's operating outside of that. Even what Edom is doing today, as he's bucking up, against prophecy, is prophesied that he would do that. Okay. So we really, history gives more proof that the Lord is in full control of the affairs of the earth. All right. Now, let's get this in Daniel. Okay. And then we'll go into the video. I want to show these pictures while I'm reading this as well. And we'll get into the picture. All right, this is the brother Ash Rakwa Yashala, Daniel 7 and 1. It says, in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions, all right, of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and he told the sum of the matter. So our forefathers, okay, the prophets of old would have, dreams and visions, and they would either write them down themselves or have them scribed. Okay, this is what we have, this compiled collection of visions, okay, of our forefather, which are prophets sent, which are prophecies sent by Yahweh Shem Shai. Okay, and for us to have in this time, like Scripture said, to be able to run, write it down in the book, so they read may be able to run. Okay, and this is what we're doing this time, as we, have the understanding of these things through the Holy Spirit. Okay, through Yahweh Shai being able, due to Yahweh Shai, all right, being worthy to loose the seals. Okay, now this is Daniel 7 and 2. It says, Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heaven strove up against the sea. Okay. It says, and four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse, all right, one from another. All right. Verse 4. And it says, the first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. And this is what we're going to, emphasize on. The eagle's wings, which represent the Assyrian Empire. Okay, because that lion represents the Babylonian Empire, which, the Assyrian Empire was pretty much translated to the Babylonians, which we'll get into that towards the end. We'll get into it a little bit, but then on the next segment, Lord we'll go into the rise of the Babylonian Empire within, the Assyrian Empire, and go fully into that transition, Abaratazah. All right, so the first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth and made stand upon the feet as a man. All right, and as a man's so it says a man's feet as a man, and it says and a man's heart was given to it. Okay, I'm saying this is going into the emergence of the Babylonian Empire from the Assyrian Empire. That lion that stood on his feet. Okay, and like I said, we'll get into that, but we want to put emphasis on the Syrian Empire. And when you look at the different statues from the Syrian Empire, it's pretty much as described in Daniel. Let me go to it. Yep. So you look at these different statues, and what do you see? You see a man's head, okay, with a lion body, but with eagle's wings, and this was a lot of the statue, okay, and these are all these statues of the Syrian Empire, okay. You see him standing on his feet, okay, with wings. You see, you see how it links up with prophecy, man. Okay. A lot of their statues and structures, will have the wings. Okay. Let's see if we get a good. All right. So there's just some, some structures I want to show, dealing with the Assyrian Empire. All right. But now, let's get into this documentary. Not too long, it's about 12 minutes, so we'll go through it and then commentate and add, and if you brothers got any, info or precepts, feel free to add, any facts, to add them to, the video or whatever, feel free to add. So let's get to the documentary. And it's all the showcase that the Lord, the Lord is always pretty much putting things in order to fulfill prophecy, man. He's always causing particular things to happen in the earth, okay, for the fulfillment of his prophecy, man. Okay. So let's go here.
The Assyrians were a great military nation with swords red with blood and ambitions rampant and unchecked, allowing them to create one of the most expansive empires in ancient Mesopotamia. But where do they go after such success? Before Alexander the Great embarked on his quest to be the conqueror of the world, there was another empire that made the nations tremble in their homes. They could make the bravest warrior's heart turn cold with their reputation for harsh punishments for war prisoners and brutal siege warfare. But the Assyrian Empire no longer reigns over Mesopotamia. In fact, it no longer exists at all. The Assyrians did not start out as the largest group in Mesopotamia. Historians believe that the Assyrians first arrived in Mesopotamia around 2600 BCE. For about 600 years, the city of Assur, which was the Assyrian capital, was a vassal of the Akkadian Empire. Living in the shadow of the Akkadian Empire meant that the Assyrians worried about becoming slaves to this more powerful entity, but it also meant that they benefited from the trade network. They established several different trading posts and used their wealth and influence to grow. They rebelled against the Akkadians every time there was a moment of weakness, showing that even as a young civilization, they were a nation of fighters. The Assyrians were finally freed from Akkadian rule around 2150 BCE. They managed to escape the influence of other Mesopotamian tribes because the Assyrians were too far north for the southern tribes to worry about at that time. Left to their own devices, the Assyrians began to expand their trade network and establish the first borders of their kingdom. Through their trade network, they came into contact with iron, which they used to make weapons that were better than the traditional bronze weapons. There were many different
So as you can see, phase one was pretty much the Assyrians being able to break away from the dominant empire at the time, which was the Akkadian Empire. Okay. And as they started to expand, they ran across iron, which made, their weapons, more superior than those, all right, of, competing tribes, in different, kingdoms of that time. So we'll see the Lord is at work, man. Pretty much setting it up for Assyria, okay, to become an empire to fulfill prophecy, man. Okay.
competing tribes in Mesopotamia, so the Assyrians spent many years defending their territory from everyone else. It wasn't until King Adad-nirari I came to the throne in 1307 BCE that Assyria began to expand dramatically. He also introduced the Assyrian practice of deporting populations after conquering new land and harsh punishments for anyone else who resisted Assyrian rule. Although the general practice of deportation was normal in Mesopotamia, the Assyrians' use of this tactic appears to have been larger in scale and more forceful than had been seen before. King Adad-nirari I was a great military king, and he conquered nearly all of the Mitanni kingdom, which was near Assur. The Assyrian kings who followed would continue in military excellence, conquering more land and getting more resources for their growing empire. By the time King Tukulti-Ninurta I died around 1208 BCE, most of Mesopotamia was under Assyrian rule. Even the Bronze Age collapse didn't stop the growing empire for long. Several large civilizations collapsed, but the Assyrian Empire pushed through, even if it did lose some of the land it had conquered earlier. But all that changed in 1115 BCE. Tiglath-Pileser I came to the throne, and he revitalized the economy and pushed the Assyrian Empire to conquer as it never had before. For the first time, the Assyrians reached the Mediterranean Sea, and all the practice they had had so far prepared them to step into the Neo-Assyrian Empire, which historians say lasted from 911 BCE to 609 BCE. During this time, they expanded to control the four corners of the earth, making them the largest ancient Mesopotamian civilization. It was fueled by financial concerns. War was profitable, and the Assyrian kings needed funds to build large temples and palaces, and conquering more land allowed them to set up safer trade routes. The Assyrians began this task of conquering their immediate neighbors, but they soon stretched to conquer Syria, Israel, and Palestine. At this time, there wasn't any other superpower in the area, so the Assyrians went unchallenged by anyone big enough to pose a serious threat. Even Egypt could not provide strong resistance to Assyrian forces because the Egyptians were dealing with the Kush to the south. Sargon II, remembered as one of Assyria's great military kings, began conquering Egypt around 720 BCE. He was so powerful that Pharaoh Osorkon IV quickly decided to make peace with the Assyrians. Sargon II agreed to peace, and the two countries traded with each other. However, this wasn't enough for the Assyrians. Egypt was still a free country, which meant that they were free to support rebellions against the Assyrian Empire. When Esarhaddon came to the throne in 681 BCE, he decided to put an end to that by marching his army into Egyptian territory and finally bringing Egypt under Assyrian rule.
Now, what I want to go to real quick, um, go into some commentary, because as you can see, you know, when you understand the geopolitics of the time, all right, during the time of the northern and southern kingdom, a lot of times they will try to use Egypt as an ally, okay, to defend itself from Assyria, and that's why Isaiah, will warn, all right, Israel about trusting in Egypt. As we read these particular things in the book of Isaiah, okay, the book of Hosea kind of goes into it as well, all right, but mainly here when you go into Isaiah, let's get it, because in 722, that's when Assyria was allowed to conquer, all right, the northern tribes of Samaria, and we see that that practice of deporting, its conquered subjects into other lands, happened in the book of Kings, um, the 17th chapter. Okay, we read a little bit of that yesterday, all right, on how the Syrians would do that. They would conquer lands, all right, and they would deport, the population, okay, from one, all right, landmass to another. And they would do that because if they kept the people in their homeland, they would be familiar with it and they would be more prone to have, rebellion, because people would fight, for their land to, be sovereign in their own land, but they would take them to a whole nother land where they would have to learn, how to live off the land again, where they would have to learn about the land. They were too occupied in surviving, all right, than to be able to rebel, and we see that practice, was started 500, close to 500 years before, okay, before, let me see, the Assyrians, all right, conquered, the northern kingdom, okay. So we go into a little bit of their history, all right. This is on 2 Kings 17:1. It says, in the 12th year, Ahaz, king of Judah, began Hoshea, the son of Eli, to reign in Samaria over Israel 9 years. And he did that which was evil in the sight of the Lord, but not as the kings of Israel that were before him. Against him came up Shalmaneser, all right, king of Assyria, all right, and Hoshea became his servant and gave him presents, pretty much became a vassal, okay. It says, and the king of Assyria found a conspiracy in Hoshea, all right, and what was they trying to do? For he had sent messengers to all right, king of Egypt, okay. Jake was trying to plot, all right, against Assyria, through Egypt, because Assyria just had them, under Shalmaneser, they just had Israel as a vassal, all right, the northern kingdom, and they would just have to pay tribute, okay. But when they found out about the conspiracy, the plots, all right, of rebellion with Egypt, then you would see a military campaign against the northern kingdom, man, that will cause them to be deported, okay. And it said, for he had sent messengers to So, king of Egypt, and brought no present to the king of Assyria, and he had done as he had done year by year. Therefore, the king of Assyria shut him up. All right, and this is going to siege warfare. All right, and if you study the ancient Assyrian military, okay, they was experts in siege warfare. Okay, and they brought it to the northern kingdom, man. And it says, and bound him in prison. Then the king of Assyria came up throughout all the land and went up to Samaria and besieged it 3 years. Okay, and we know eventually what Assyria, all right, took, all right, the northern tribes, all right, took Samaria, because when your capital fall, that's it. Okay, when the nation, all right, when an invading army takes your capital, that's pretty much it. It's downhill from there. So Samaria was taken, and the northern tribes were, all right, deported, into lands, okay, in the Far East, going towards Iraq, you know, Eastern Syria, okay, and Far East into the Mesopotamian area, okay. Now, I want to read a few things, okay, because it was only given to the Assyrians that they will be able to take, the northern kingdom, all right. The Lord didn't give them authority, okay, to conquer, all right, the southern kingdom, which they would attempt to, but we have the account where the Lord intervened, because there wasn't part of prophecy, all right. They will only be able to take the northern kingdom, showing you that the Lord, all right, just as the Lord gives commands to the sea, that they have, a point that they can't pass, no matter how much they wave. I mean, no matter how much they roar, okay, they still only come to a certain point, and then they start retracting. Okay, the Lord does the same thing with empires. They can only go so far, and then they start retracting, man. And we're gonna see this with each and every empire that we go through. The Lord sets bounds, okay, that they can't pass, as it says in the book of Job. Okay, so when you go to, I'm gonna read some in the commentary. This is the Nelson. This is out of the Nelson Bible commentary, and what you're gonna go into, as the brother put up. Matter of fact, let me pull that up, and then we'll get some commentary on it. This is the book of Isaiah. All right, this is the book of Isaiah, chapter 10, verse 5. It says, O Syrian, the rod of my anger, and the staff in their hand is my indignation. Yeah, see, the Lord raised up the Assyrians to execute, all right, his judgment in the earth, man. Okay, and mainly upon who? The northern tribes, all right, of Israel, because of what? Idolatry. Okay. Verse 6 says, I will send him against an hypocritical nation, and against the people of my wrath will I give him a charge to take the spoil and to take the prey and to tread them down like the mire of the streets. Okay, so the Lord gives them a charge. Okay, the Lord is commanding these empires to come into power. Okay, and what's happening, these empires get proud and full of themselves, and then the Lord will have to take them down and put up another one. Then that empire get proud, and he'll do the same thing. Okay, until the Lord sets up his people that's going to rule in righteousness, man. Okay, in humility. Okay. Now, I want to get. Let me see. Now, this is commentary for Isaiah chapter 10, verse 5 in the Nelson Study Bible. It said, like an offended father dealing with a disobedient son, the Most High used the Assyrian as a rod of anger to discipline Israel. Howbeit, he meaneth not so, indicates that the Assyrians did not intend to cooperate with the Most High, but in the providence of the Most High, they cooperated unwittingly, who have resisted his will. Okay, the cities listed in verse 9 are a direct line from Nineveh, all right, to Jerusalem. Okay, note that Samaria is already listed as fallen. The prophet's intention is to make it clear that Assyria would not conquer Israel by her own power, but by the Most High's permission. Okay? See, prophecy dictates what's allowed and what's not allowed in the earth. Okay, when you go into it. You see, because it's the most, that's why we call him the Most High, because he has the last say so in all the affairs of the earth. The scriptures say what, that a bird doesn't drop dead unless it's ordained by the Most High, man. Just like a kingdom doesn't come into power unless it's ordained by the Most High, man. And what they're going to conquer while they're in power is already ordained. That measure is already set. Okay, so you read verse 7 says, "Howbeit he meaneth not so, neither doth his heart think so, but it is in his heart to destroy and cut off nations, not a few." Okay, which the Assyrians, they expanded and they were conquering, man, but they had a limit. And when we go here to Isaiah 30, okay, because you have the southern kingdom, all right, trying to make alliances with Egypt, just as the northern kingdom did, to try to withstand, all right, Assyria. Okay, now the Lord stepped in and intervened on behalf of the southern kingdom, okay, because it wasn't their lot to go into captivity under the Assyrians. Okay, now as we read these things and we bring it out today, we know spiritually this is speaking of our people that trust in this current spiritual Egypt, which is America. Okay, this current beast system. Okay, but there was actual geopolitics, surrounding what was being said. All right, here, all right, in Isaiah, as he was pretty much cussing out the southern kingdom, okay, for trying to make an alliance with Egypt and not trying to be allied back with Yahweh Bashim al-Shai through repentance, man. Okay, so when you read Isaiah 30:1, it says, "Woe to the rebellious children, said the Lord, that take counsel, but not of me, and they're covering with a covering, but not of my spirit, that they may add sin to sin." Because see, they can make alliances with Egypt and they wouldn't have to repent. They can still do what they wanted to do. Okay, just like in this time, our people, they try to make alliances with this society and try to fix what's going on, okay, within the nation through the way of this system, because it doesn't require repentance. Okay, and a lot of our people in these times that we're coming into, they're not going to be covered by the spirit of Yahweh Shema Shai, because they continue to be rebellious, all right, and look to this society for help. Okay, but this was actually going on with actual Egypt back during the time of the southern kingdom. Okay, still had somewhat of sovereignty. It said, this is Isaiah 30:2. It says, "They walk to go down into Egypt and have not asked of my mouth, to strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh and trust in the shadow of Egypt. Therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh be your shame, and the trust in the shadow of Egypt your confusion." Yeah, because the Lord allowed the Syrians, okay, to dominate Egypt, and eventually he would allow the Babylonians to do the same thing, which we'll get into that, like I said, in the later video. Okay. Now, when you read on, it says, "For his princes were as Zoan, and his ambassadors came to Hanis. They were all ashamed of the people that could not profit them, nor be a help, nor a profit, but a shame, and also a reproach. The burdens," it said, "the burden of the beast of the south into the land of trouble and anguish, from whence come the young and old lion, the viper and fiery serpent. They will carry their riches upon their shoulders of young asses, and their treasures upon the bunches of camels, to a people that should not profit them." Now let's get this in the NLT, okay? Because what was actually going on was that they were sending pretty much bribes, okay, unto Egypt. They will make that dangerous trip across the desert, with riches to buy the alliance of the Egyptians instead of repenting. Okay, it said, "This message came to me concerning the animals and the give. The caravan moved slowly across the terrible deserts of Egypt, donkeys weighed down with riches and camels loaded with treasure, all to pay for Egypt's protection." Okay, They traveled through the wilderness, a place of lioness and lions, a place where vipers and poisonous snakes live. All this, and Egypt will give you nothing in return. Okay? You see how people was what? Trusting in riches, trusting in the physical military of Egypt, and they were disappointed. Just like in this time, a lot of our people are going to be disappointed in this system, in this society. Okay? But you had Jake, really making those alliances back then, and the Lord would always disappoint, because it's already set up. He's showing that you can't prep against the will of the Lord. All right. Now, when you go to Isaiah 36, well, let's read the commentary on Isaiah 30. Then we'll move to 36. So this is the commentary for Isaiah 30, verses 1 through 7. It says, the rebellious children are the people of Judah who are determined to go down into Egypt. That is, to seek an alliance with Egypt against Assyria. It says Hanis is mentioned in the Bible only here. It was apparently near Zoan, the largest Egyptian city near the Israelite border. It served as the capital of the 21st and 22nd dynasties of Egypt. Okay, so just showing you the geopolitical backdrop of what was going on, because Israel and Egypt do share a border. Okay. And Jake thought that alliance, was going to, be a protection against the expanding Assyrian, military, but the Lord showed that he's the protection. That's why he intervened with that angel, okay, and slew all those Assyrian troops, 185,000. The Lord stepped in. Hezekiah, pretty much repented, and the Lord stepped in on the behalf of the southern kingdom, okay, to deliver them from the Assyrians. Okay, the Egyptians was of no help because they was getting their ass handed to them. Okay, you see. So let's go here and just a little more history. Then we'll go back to the video. All right, because what you had, you did have Sennacherib. He invaded Judah and he was able to take, pieces of Judah. Okay, he took a few captives, but hey, he had a bound that he couldn't cross. Okay, so when you read Isaiah 36 and 1, it says, now it came to pass in the 14th year of King Hezekiah that Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came up against all the defense cities of Judah, okay, and took them. And the king of Assyria sent Shaki, all right, from Lachish to Jerusalem unto King Hezekiah with a great army, and he stood by the conduit of the upper pool, all right, in the highway of the fuller's field. Then came forth unto him Eliakim, all right, Hilkiah's son, which was over the house, and Shebna the scribe, and Joah, Asaph's son, the recorder. And Shaki said unto them, say ye now to Hezekiah, thus said the great king, the king of Assyria, what confidence is this wherein thou trustest? I sayest thou, but they are but vain words. I have counsel and strength for war. Now on whom dost thou trust that thou rebellest against me? Lo, thou trusted in the staff of this broken reed on Egypt, wherein if a man lean, it will go into his hand and pierce it. So is Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, to all that trust in him. Okay, so the Syrians just is like, look, okay, if your trust is in Egypt, okay, you're going to be disappointed. If you're going to lean on Egypt, okay, we running through Egypt, man. Okay, but what did it take, man? It took Hezekiah, okay, as you see here, he seeks Isaiah's help, okay, and you go into it as he repents. All right, the Lord intervenes, man. All right, and this Hezekiah, he's praying to the Lord now. Okay, so let's just read a little bit of it. Saying that Hezekiah prayed unto the Lord, Yahweh Shema Shai, saying, O Lord, the host power of Israel that dwellest between the cherubims, thou art the power, even thou alone, of all the kingdoms of the earth. Thou hast made heaven and earth. Incline thy ear, O Lord, and open thy eyes, O Lord, and see and hear all the words of Sennacherib. All right, how do you pronounce it? Sennacherib, you know, which have sent, which have sent to reproach the living power of truth, Lord. All right, the king of the Syrians have laid waste all the nations and their countries, and have cast their goods into the fire, for they were no gods, but the works of men's hands, wood and stone. Therefore have they destroyed them. Now, therefore, O Lord, our power, save us from his hand, that all the kingdoms of the earth may know that thou art Lord, even thou only. So you see the scenario was set up for the Lord to showcase his power, to showcase that he is. No matter how mighty the Assyrian Empire had gotten, the Lord, okay, was still in full control. Okay? And it says, then Isaiah the son of Amos sent unto Hezekiah, saying, Thus saith the Lord, power of Israel, whereas thou hast prayed to me against Sennacherib, king of Assyria, this is the word of the Lord has spoken concerning him. The virgin, all right, the virgin, the daughter of Zion, has despised thee and laughed thee to scorn. The daughter of Jerusalem have shaken her head at thee. Whom hast thou reproached and blasphemed, and against whom thou exalted thy voice and lifted up thy eyes on high, even against the Holy One of Israel? But thy servants but thy servants hast thou reproached, all right, the Lord, and has said, by the multitudes of my chariots am I come up to the high mountains, the height of the mountains, to the sides of Lebanon, and I will cut down the tall cedars thereof, and the choice fir trees thereof, and I will enter into the height of his border, and the forest, all right, of his Carmel. And it says, I have digged and drunk water, and with the sole of my feet have I dried up all the rivers and besieged, all right, rivers of the besieged places. Hast thou not heard long ago how I have done it, of the ancient times that I have formed it? Now have I brought it to pass that thou shouldest be, okay, that thou shouldest be to lay waste the fenced cities into ruinous heaps. Therefore the inhabitants were of small power and were dismayed and confounded. They were of the grass of the field, and there's the green herb, and there's the grass of the housetops, and the corn blasted before he grown up. But I know thy abode, and thy going out and thy coming in, and against thy rage against me, because thy rage against me and thy tumult, all right, is come up into my ears. Therefore will I put my hook in the nose and bridle in thy lips, and will turn thee back by the way which thou camest. Okay, and this is speaking to the Syrian military, showing that the Lord is in full control, and he's gonna put a hook and a bridle in the militaries of the Assyrians, man. Okay, and the Lord is showcasing what? His authority. You see, showing that look, all your feats and your accolades and everything you conquered was all by me. Okay. But now, it's to the point I'm finna stop. I done heard the prayer of my servant, Hezekiah. Okay. But just to, just to give you a quick history of what was going on, geopolitically, during that time. Okay. So we can go back to the video.
and finally bringing Egypt under Assyrian rule. Although conquering Egypt encouraged cultural developments in the Assyrian Empire, the Assyrians were not satisfied. The Assyrian Empire was the largest it had ever been, and the kings were still focusing on expanding. As they marched across Mesopotamia and into Africa, the Assyrians seemed unstoppable. So, what happened to the Assyrians? Just as they reached the height of their power, the Assyrian Empire suddenly collapsed. But why did it fall so quickly? Historians believe that the empire got too big to be completely defended, and the Assyrians neglected their unspoken agreement with the Babylonians, which proved to be their undoing. By trying to conquer Babylon, the Assyrians spent too much time and too many resources in their attempt to control all of Mesopotamia, leaving themselves vulnerable to collapse and defeat. When Tiglath-Pileser III came to the throne in 745 BCE, Assyria went through a time of major expansion. These expansions were mostly focused westward on countries like Egypt, Phoenicia, and Palestine. But some of their expansion began to encroach southward, where Babylon was. For a long time, Assyria and Babylon had had an unspoken agreement that neither civilization would meddle with the other. Both were powerful civilizations in Mesopotamia, and they had major cultural similarities that included worshiping the same gods. They were so similar that meddling with each other would probably start a war that would end with only one civilization left. By the time Tiglath-Pileser III came to power, the Assyrians had decided to take that risk. Controlling all of Mesopotamia was too tempting an opportunity not to pursue. So as Assyria expanded to the north and the west, they also expanded to the south. Tiglath-Pileser III started his reign by marching into lands along the southern and eastern borders of the Assyrian Empire. He claimed he was doing this to support the Babylonian king against enemy tribes, but he was probably also doing this to protect his own interests. A strong Babylonian king served as a buffer between Assyria and other tribes like Elam and Medes. The Babylonians didn't always appreciate the Assyrian interference in their territories, so fights had broken out about this practice before, even though that did not stop the Assyrians from interfering. In 745 BCE, Tiglath-Pileser III was pulled away from his exploits in Babylon, and while he was gone, a Chaldean named Mukenzeri took the Babylonian throne. Tiglath-Pileser III was not pleased, and he hurried back, conquering Chaldean cities and eventually taking the Babylonian throne for himself. Although the Assyrians officially held the Babylonian throne for about a century, they could never fully bring Babylon under Assyrian rule. The Chaldeans seized power every time the Assyrians turned their focus to another part of their growing empire. In fact, in 721 BCE, Merodach-Baladan assumed the Babylonian throne and ruled in relative peace for 10 years. The Assyrians were busy with other areas of their empire, and Merodach-Baladan used his reign to increase prosperity and academic learning in Babylon. It all changed when the Assyrians finally had time to turn their attention back to the south. In 710 BCE, Sargon II renewed the fight against the Babylonians, and he defeated Merodach-Baladan and took control of the Babylonian throne. He intended to finally consolidate Babylon under Assyrian rule, which would cost the Assyrians dearly. The Assyrians spent the next 30 years in drawn-out military combat with the Babylonians. Although they eventually managed to mostly take control of Babylon under Sennacherib's reign, the Babylonians were bitter about the defeat, especially after Sennacherib treated them no better than any other civilization he conquered. He razed buildings, looted temples, and even destroyed their farming land by dumping the soil into the Euphrates River. The Babylonians would never forgive them for that. After Sennacherib was assassinated, Esarhaddon took the throne and immediately began trying to heal the rift between Babylon and Assyria. He rebuilt temples, reinstituted tax exemptions, and tried to restore the cultural and economic prosperity the Babylonians were used to. Esarhaddon appears to have been fairly popular. At the very least, the Babylonians did not openly rebel against him, so his reign was peaceful. As Esarhaddon was dying, though, he did something non-traditional. He named his son, Ashurbanipal, as the heir of the Assyrian throne, and he named his other son, Shamash-shumukin, as the heir of the Babylonian throne.
It's always been inside me to make things. So merging art and business can be a little tricky.
We took a leap of faith, both quit our jobs.
Esarhaddon.
So what you see now is the Assyrians, pretty much, go on a campaign to try to control, Babylon. All right, but Babylon was always looked at as the religious, epic center, in the Mesopotamian area, and the Babylonians, all right, was not, the Babylonians had a culture where they didn't want to be ruled over by any other sovereignty, so it would always be, clashes and conflict between them and the Assyrians. And you see the Lord, never allowed the Assyrians to pretty much do away with the Babylonian Empire because Babylon was next up. So as we see, there's a transition that happened. Okay, we see there's a resistance, there's a rebellion within Babylon that can't be put out because the Babylonians had to fulfill major prophecy, man. Okay, showing you that the will of the Lord is always played out, man. If your brother can get that in Isaiah 34:16, if a brother can post that, okay. And it's similar in the spirit, we are a spiritual resistance, to this current society, man. Okay, this spiritual Egypt, all right, the daughter of Babylon, because the Lord has prophecy planned. Hey, you see, and I say history. When you go into the history and filtered through prophecy, it's a faith booster for what the Lord is about to do. We see what He's done, and we see, He always exercising and showcasing that He's in full control. It's the same thing He's finna do now. Okay, so let's get this. It's from the brother Bayan Yashala, Isaiah 34:16. It says, "Seek you out of the book of the Lord and read. No one of these shall fail." Okay, and as we can see, it's not within the hands of men, okay, that determines, all right, what's going to happen in the earth. You see, because if it was up to the Syrians, they would still be in power right now. You see, but nah, they had their role within prophecy, and when it's fulfilled, it's on to the next. Okay, said, "For my mouth it have commanded, and His spirit it have gathered them." Okay, and history shows that no one of these shall fail. Okay, so I'm gonna let it play out.
Envisioned his sons ruling Mesopotamia together as equals. That did not happen. Ashurbanipal continued the Assyrian.
And what you had with Sennacherib, okay, is that he tried to put, one of his sons as the heir in Assyria, and the other one is the heir of Babylon, which will give Assyria full control over, that whole region. Okay, but it didn't play out like that. Okay, it was clashes because prophecy got to be fulfilled. No matter what solution you try to come up with, prophecy gonna be fulfilled. And see, we finna see the same thing with Esau Edom. Esau trying to come up with a solution that keeps him in power. Okay, but prophecy is working against him now. Okay, just like when prophecy was for the Assyrians, everything went in their favor. But now we see prophecy is against the Assyrians, and we're seeing conflict. Okay, just like in this society, man. Okay, Everything that Esau Edom is trying to do and stay in the power is only removing him from power, man. You know, that's how prophecy works.
Practice of interfering with Babylonian affairs, which angered Shamash Shumukin. Fighting between the two brothers erupted in 652 BCE, and this brotherly squabble became known as the Great Rebellion. The fighting dragged on for the next 7 years. Most of the major cities sided with Ashurbanipal in Assyria, but Shamash Shumukin had the support of Elam in the east and the Arabs in the west. Ashurbanipal would eventually put down the rebellion, but the fact that it took him 7 years shows that Assyria was already in decline. Although Assyria won, they would never again be able to embark on a major military campaign. They destroyed Elam, which eventually removed one of their protective buffers against the southern tribes. The war had also strained the Assyrian resources. The repeated campaigns in Babylon had cost too much. And while Babylon wasn't the only reason that Assyria fell, it was one of the main reasons. Understanding the Assyrian collapse is a study of paradoxes. The Assyrians needed to expand because they needed resources. They used their superior weapons and military tactics to wreak havoc on their neighbors, conquer more land, and get the resources they needed for their growing population. The problem is that as they expanded and conquered more land, they needed even more resources to take care of their ever-growing population. They had to set up government systems to collect tribute from conquered people, and they needed to maintain a strong army to defend their conquered land and put down rebellions. All of that takes resources. And one of the resources the Assyrians never seemed to have quite enough of was manpower. As the Assyrians began to fight larger and more powerful kingdoms, they had trouble securing their borders. They didn't have enough men to fight kingdoms like Babylon and keep down any rebellions in other conquered lands. The Assyrians had to choose their battles, and by choosing to fight Babylon off and on for about a century, they left themselves vulnerable to attacks in other parts of the empire. It was only a matter of time before the Medes, the Egyptians, and the Babylonians were too much for the Assyrians to fight off. As Assyria finally fell, Babylon rose up as the next powerful empire of Mesopotamia. Although the Assyrians were no longer a major player in Mesopotamia, they left their mark on history as one of the most powerful and warlike civilizations who had tried to conquer the world. To learn more about the Assyrians, check out our book,
And so there you have it. Pretty much, like I said, Lord will, we'll go into the rise of the Babylonian Empire, and show you how all these things work together. All right. And, hey, Mosai, he put down one and set up another, man. And we'll end it here with this precept. Okay. And any questions, anything that you brothers, would like to see me go into, kind of explain more, put it on the comment board. If something, you got a question about anything, put it on the comment board, and we can go into it. That's what we're here for, man. All right. This the brother Beyond Yashala, Daniel 4:17 said, "This matters by the decree of the watchers and a demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, okay, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and setteth over it the bases of men." Okay. And right now the bases of men are set up, these Edomites, man. But the point is that the Lord ruleth within the kingdom of men. Okay. And he sets up and puts down as he pleases according to his will. All right. So we're going to keep going to these things, as if you brothers find, any articles, any any videos, like put it on the comment board, man. We just add it, to the lesson, how if it fits, So with the water, to Yahweh Shema Shai for the inspiration and the motivation to do the lesson, to do all things, and Lord will you will edify it. Till next time I say Shalom, Kwam Yashala, a Bible Bar, DTA soon, Shalom.